Good afternoon, everyone. It's time for Connecting with Kim. Whether you've lived in this community for years or just moved in last month, Connecting with Kim will bring you resources and information to help you live your best life here in Sun City Center. Here's your host, Kim Droege, with this week's Connecting with Kim.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Connecting with Kim. I'm your host, Kim Droege, and I'm so glad that you joined us today. We have an exciting show for you. My guest is Mr. Jonathan Moore, who is the president of InVision Advisors. Welcome, Jonathan, to Connecting with Kim.
Thank you very much, Kim, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. We're excited too. So let me give just a little bit of background of why I asked you to be on the show, and then we'll give you a few minutes to chat about yourself and give our listeners a little bit of understanding of who Jonathan is. So Jonathan is our advisor here for the Sun City Center Community Association, all the building projects that we have done since 2013. And I met Jonathan at a recent community association meeting, and I thought to myself, I'm not sure everybody in Sun City Center in the community association knows who Jonathan is. So it might be a good idea to have you on the show. So there we go. Jonathan, why don't you take a few minutes and just give our listeners a little bit of understanding of your life journey thus far?
Sure. I've been in Florida since middle school. I'm not allowed to say that I was born and raised here because my wife was born and raised here, and she is very quick to say that she is the true native and I am not, having moved here in middle school. I kind of always had a passion for drawing. My dad worked for Shell Oil, and I'd always go with him. He was in the real estate, and so he would purchase property for gas stations. And I would draw while I was waiting in the car for him. And he said, "Jonathan, you're going to be an architect someday." Well, sure enough, comes to choose a major at the University of Florida, and I chose architecture and kind of never looked back. I graduated from University of Florida, then moved to Los Angeles for 2.5 years and got my master's degree in architecture in Los Angeles. I was dating a gal from Tampa. Thought that I would eventually have her move out to Los Angeles and we'd take over the world, but kind of decided to move back to Tampa since my family was here and I'd take over the world in Tampa. Not sure I've taken over the world, but I practiced for 12 years, actually a little more than maybe 15 years as an architect, then sold my practice and went into what I have now as the owner of InVision Advisors.
Well, I think that's a good place to start. I've, of course, looked at your website. I never have a guest on that I don't do a little bit of investigation ahead of time. But I always approach the interviews as if I know nothing because I have to assume my listeners don't know anything about you. So I had a really good look at your website. And I think the best place to start is, why would someone need your services and why did you decide to start this business?
Sure. We're what the design and construction industry calls an owner's representative. We manage the design and construction process for owners that don't have the time or knowledge. It just so happens that we work for a lot of nonprofits that are board-led that really need someone to lead the process that's been through the process before. In 2013, that led your board to send me a request to give them a proposal to run a new welcome center, which expanded from that. But we really just run all the aspects of the design and construction process, bringing the architects in, negotiating contracts, doing the same with the contractor, and ultimately managing the budget and the schedule, making sure that they're meeting deadlines, and of course, overseeing the quality of the project.
So having been an architect yourself with your own firm, you probably had firsthand knowledge of how difficult it is to put together all the moving parts when you don't have that as a background.
Absolutely. And, construction has its own language and its own peculiarities about it. I'm sure lots of listeners are from the design and construction world, and they know that to have experience, to have those lessons learned across, at this point, I've been involved with over 1,000 projects, to have that sort of database in my brain of what I've seen before, what I think costs should be, timelines should be, really helps to bring an effectiveness to getting things accomplished on time and on budget.
And of course, the learning curve for everyone involved is substantially reduced because you don't have that learning curve. You've already been through it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because you mentioned that you work with a lot of nonprofits. Now, of course, the Sun City Center Community Association is a 501c3, so they are a nonprofit. They are a charity, actually, as classified by the IRS. And even though nonprofits have boards, And even though some of those people on that board might have been general contractors in their previous life or in their current life, that's not necessarily the best person to lead the project.
That's absolutely true. We love the boards that we work with, and we would never recommend someone on that board actually hold the position of architect, engineer, or contractor. We want those skills to be in the board. And, I like to think that we are good listeners of our boards. We don't force feed our opinions to boards. We really listen. We build consensus, make sure that there is a common voice to those folks who know the construction world, as well as those board members that don't, and really educate them. Our role as educators is almost just as important as managing the architect and contractor. So I think serving our boards and having a skill set that lends ourselves to really listening and understanding the volunteer roles that these important people play.
Why don't you give my listeners an idea of the breadth and depth or size of projects that you have managed since you started your company?
Sure. We'll start small. I would say that we've managed little interior projects of just a couple of $100,000. Right now, I'm working on a pool renovation for a 15-story condo project. Now, that condo is a big project, but the pool is only a couple $100,000. We'll take that all the way up to projects like the St. Pete Pier and the Straz Center for the Performing Arts. The Straz is an $80 million project that we're involved in right now, managing the complexities of getting design. And we were just told we had to get $10 million out of the budget. If I look at some of the projects we worked on in Sun City, that's like, that's like 10 welcome centers that we have to get out of the Straz project. And, we do that through communication and lots of work sessions. But I would say, we'd get up to the $150, $200 million range in our project experiences. And to date, I think we've done $2.5 billion worth of construction projects.
Wow. And how many people are in your firm?
There are 7 project managers currently at InVision. Because the market is so great, we're looking to grow even more. Real estate and design and construction, the market is fantastic right now. So I see us growing just a little bit more, but you guys are one of our favorite clients. We've done so much work and we understand the processes that the community association needs to go through. So we really love you guys.
Oh, that's very nice to hear. Now, let's do a quick review for our listeners and particularly for the members of the Sun City Center Community Association. You started with the Welcome Center in 2013, and let's progress from there, from the projects that you have helped our community association with.
Sure. The Welcome Center, the library expansion, the Samaritan building, and the multipurpose next to the Samaritan building were kind of the first wave of projects that we did. They were bundled together with a contractor. The same architect that had did the 50-year master plan back in 2012 was the architect for that project and has continued. Even though we have bid out each phase to other architects, they continue to be dedicated and give us reduced fees as a kind of a repeat customer. We moved on. I think that project took about 2 years. In 2015, we started the new administration building. That took a couple of years to get through. And then last year, we started talking about our new multi-purpose building, the 2-story that's going over on the golf course property across the street from the fitness center, for lack of a better description. And that's where we are now.
Let me ask you, you've been on both sides of the fence now. Which side of the fence do you like the best?
Oh, my. I love being an owner's representative and working with all of the architects that I used to compete with. The market is very small, Tampa Bay, and there are a lot of great professionals out there. I love working with contractors, but more importantly, I like problem solving. And being an owner's rep is really just solving problems, listening, and building the team. It's a true collaborator. And I really like that. The short answer is I don't have the attention span to sit in front of a computer and draw all day. So, maybe architecture was never right for me. I really like getting my hands dirty, being in the field, looking at concrete pours, making sure that welds are properly in place. I really like that. And I know what I'm looking at when I'm out in the field because of my 25 years experience in, design and construction.
If you're just joining me now on Connecting with Kim, my guest today on the program is Mr. Jonathan Moore, who is the president of InVision Advisors and who is our Sun City Center Community Association's advisor since 2013 on all of our building projects. And that's why I've asked him to be a guest today. Okay, so, and architecture, I think, has changed a lot since maybe you began drawing. It was still a profession where you had a table and you had paper and you drew, and it's not that kind of experience anymore.
It has. I'll tell you, the technology changes, weekly. The renderings we are seeing coming from architects right now are really, they're photographs. You can't tell the difference between a computer-generated rendering with the correct lighting and furniture than an actual completed photograph. I did start in school hand drawing. My first job was hand drawing on a board with, erasers. And, funny story is I was working on the Church of Scientology in downtown Clearwater, and I didn't know how to work on the computer. And my boss had me work on some elevations, so what the front of the building looks like. Mm-hmm. And I started drawing it, and I drew each floor like a foot lower than it was supposed to be. And I spent days doing this drawing. And he came to my desk, said, well, it was a 10-story building. Your building is 10 feet too short in your pencil drawing, which basically meant I had to start all over again. I got so mad at that I went over to the computer and I forced myself to learn how to draw on the computer. And that was the mid-90s at that point. Because at that point, all you had to do was push a button and you could reduce the height of your building. I had to start my pencil drawing all over again. So it was really that frustration that taught me how to go to the computer generated. Now we have what's called BIM, Building Information Modeling, where drawings are drawn in 3 dimensions. And our air conditioning is drawn in 3 dimensions with all of the ductwork and our electrical runs. So we can overlap all of those to make sure everything fits in the building. It's really a spectacular technology that helps buildings, helps the efficiency, avoids conflicts, and helps them to get more accurate drawings.
Well, having been through 2 experiences in my own personal life of designing a home with an architect and going through a major renovation of a home in the Phoenix area, I can tell you that, I would have gladly handed it over to somebody else and said, here's the end result I want, make it happen. Because it's one little change on that architectural drawing. And it's like ka-ching, 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 because now everything
one check change always affects at least 5 other things.
Absolutely. I found it a fascinating process, frustrating process, and glad it was over when it was done. Because it was just any little thing, it was like, so we've got about 5 minutes left, and I want to talk about the project that we're currently facing that the CA is wanting to build, the multi-story, 2-story, I should say, building, mm-hmm. and potentially the new pool. So what do you want to share with us about where we are right now?
Well, I will tell you, this is going to be a phenomenal building for the association. Club rooms, it allows gathering. It's a new multi-purpose room that can be very flexible. I think that the struggles that we've been having are the market that we are building in and the materials, the volatility of material costs and timeline to get the materials. So our analysis and conversation has actually shifted to, what's the timeline to get steel, or, there's been a 300% increase in wood. Now, you wouldn't think that we'd have wood in our building, but our cabinets are made out of wood. We have sheathing and blocking that's wood. So there is wood in the building, and we just need to be mindful of those costs as they go up. And the sooner that we can get into construction with this building, the cheaper it's going to be. And that's sort of the up to the second conversations we're having now.
I just read an article within the last couple of days from some economists that are suggesting that this particular bubble we find ourselves in right now may have some relief. There may be some light at the end of the tunnel. There may be some relief. Are you hearing the same sort of information?
We are. Just in the last couple of weeks, we've started to see signs of a slowdown in the spike of costs. There's no indication that we're going to be able to get materials faster because there is a backlog now in Florida, at least, with getting, trusses and bar joists and that type of thing. But the material costs, we are seeing, you can see it at Home Depot. If you just look at a 2x4, the cost was changing every single week. Mm-hmm. And it's been a little more constant the last couple of weeks. It stayed right there around $15, which is still amazing to say that a 2x4 could cost $15. But yeah, there are signs that it's leveling off. And the hope is that it will go from stupid costs down to maybe just expensive, because right now it's just stupid.
Well, let me ask you, help my listeners understand what led to this current situation. Is it because of the pandemic? Is it because of the amount of building that's going on, particularly in South County right now? What led to this situation we're in?
It's really an international perfect storm is what it is. Yes, the pandemic has affected things. There were a lot of fires in the West that affected the production of wood, and the shutdown of mills and the shutdown of all factories because of the pandemic has affected lead times. Construction in China, especially the import and export of metals, has affected the timeline of getting metal and the cost of metal. Petroleum costs affects metal, plastics, electrical and mechanical. So you have the fluctuation of oil that affects most building materials. So there's no short answer to why everything is so expensive, but I sum it up as an international perfect storm.
I think you did an excellent job of summing up what the problem is. And I think it subtly makes a case for why it's best to be a producer.
Well, they're definitely on my bad guy list right now. And we interrogate to make sure no one is taking advantage of the situation. We've seen some artificially inflated labor costs that we've challenged. So we watch very closely to make sure that our clients, are paying what they should be paying and not more.
Oh, well, I'm sure that's a comfort to them. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you today. I can't tell you, we're out of time, but I just wanted to give you another minute to share anything with our listeners that you feel is important.
I know that there's an upcoming decision on whether to proceed with this building or not. From a financial point of view, we're just finalizing the budgets that the association will hear about shortly. We feel that the contractor we have on board is doing a fantastic job of balancing cost escalations with when we want to start the project. The conversation of financing is out there, and the message that needs to be sent is financing this building, should you choose to do that, is a much, much cheaper option than waiting to build this building. So I'm not on a campaign. That's just the facts. And it's 100% guaranteed that if you finance this building, it will be cheaper than waiting to build this building by hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for being my guest today on Connecting with Kim. And if you're just joining us, you'll have other opportunities to hear this interview. But my guest today on Connecting with Kim was Jonathan Moore, who is the president of InVision Advisors, who is since 2013, Community Association's advisor on all of our building projects. And I thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kim. It's great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you. That's all we have for today. Tune in next week for another edition of Connecting with Kim, where we bring you news and information that you can use in your daily life to make your life in our little corner of paradise better. Be safe, be healthy, and most importantly, be happy.
Join us at the same time next week when Kim Droege will once again bring you important information to help you live your best life here in Sun City Center. You'll be informed and up to date when you spend some time connecting with Kim, right here on your community radio station, Sun Radio, 96.3 FM and WSCQFM.com.